In less than 4 weeks, Beijing will present a Winter Olympics without real snow. Instead, most of what athletes will be competing on will be artificial snow. Hundreds of snow machines have been at work creating slopes over the past few months. It's a process that requires huge amounts of water and energy, which is environmentally damaging. It's prompted one scientist to call Beijing, quote, the least sustainable games of all time.
10 liters of snow per second. That's how much the machines blast out onto the slopes. And they've been running around the clock since mid-November. They have to, because this winter wonderland is a far cry from the barren reality of the typical landscape. It rarely snows in the mountains surrounding Beijing. Even the water has to be pumped from faraway lakes to the Olympic sites. Austrian Manuel Schöpf and his team tend to the snow, working in high winds and temperatures of around minus 25 degrees Celsius.
It gets extremely cold from December. And then there's the wind as well. It's just really, really dry. So much so that the ground hardly ever freezes, as there's no moisture in the ground.
The Olympic slopes will need over 2 million cubic meters of water in a region that's arid. Scientists say it's an environmental sin, especially considering this was a nature reserve. After Beijing was awarded the Games, the reserve's borders were amended. The mountains earmarked for downhill events were simply excluded from the zone, despite protests from environmentalists.
Of course, this is hugely problematic, as the ski slopes are not just in a nature reserve, they're right in the centre of it. So they're subject to the highest level of protection. The Olympic Village is on the fringes of the reserve, but both locations are not acceptable.
The organisers defend their decision, describing the Games as sustainable.
We've taken special measures to protect the environment. We've transferred trees and other plants from the ski slopes to other areas.
We were denied access to the relocation projects, but geographer Carmen de Jong fears they could have long-term consequences, like erosion and landslides.
I think these will be the least sustainable games of all time. The snow, the water consumption, CO2 emissions, lack of respect for nature reserves, erosion. There are so many aspects that are not sustainable.
Beijing will become the first ever city to host both summer and winter games, evidently at any cost.
And for more on this, I'm joined by Sven Daniel Wolf. He's an urban and political geographer at the University of Lausanne in Switzerland and has co-authored a study on the sustainability of the Olympic Games over the years. Daniel, welcome. China has claimed Beijing 2022 will be the, quote, greenest and cleanest Olympic Games ever. Do you agree?
Unfortunately, I don't. One of the things that we see in Olympic Games and mega events overall is that organizers and hosting authorities like to make these outlandish claims that this will be the best games ever or the greenest games ever. But when all is said and done, unfortunately, reality does not match up to the rhetoric.
In this particular case, what makes you think that it's not really matching up to the rhetoric?
Well, for one thing, there are a lot of indications that power usage, especially for the artificial snow, isn't necessarily ecologically sustainable. But also we've seen reports in Beijing as well as in other Winter Olympic Games, for example, in Sochi 2014, that the protected national parks, which were the site of Olympic ski runs, for example, have been damaged with maps being rewritten in order to accommodate for this construction. So they're not sustainable from an ecological point of view, probably not for in terms of social sustainability or economic sustainability either, but we'll have to see after the fact. But unfortunately, what the results of our research show is that previous events have not held up to organizers' claims. And so I'm not very optimistic looking forward either.
And speaking about that research, you have in fact looked at the sustainability of 16 summer and winter Olympic Games between 1992 and 2020. How sustainable are the Olympic Games?
Yes, sir, that's true. Our team at the University of Lausanne has looked at every single Winter and Summer Olympic Games since 1992. And unfortunately, overall, in the three dimensions of sustainability that I mentioned, ecological, economic, and social, we see sustainability trending down for each of those dimensions and overall.
In terms of sustainability, can you define that a little further? What exactly are the Olympic Games getting wrong, even though the IOC keeps claiming that the Olympic Games should be sustainable?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, so one of the problems that we've seen in our research is that people mean different things when they say sustainability. So one of the things we tried to do was define the term quite carefully. So more than just environmental sustainability, which is talking about the natural environment, but also social sustainability, how kind are the Olympics to the host societies, the people who actually live in the hosting environments, and also economically, do you break budgets? Do you host the games under budget? So if a games does well on each of those dimensions, then we could call them sustainable overall. But what our model shows is that some games are, say, for example, ecologically sustainable, but not socially or economically. And what we'd really like to see is good performance across all of those dimensions. The thing that's really interesting, I think, is that despite organizers' claims to the contrary, we see sustainability in all dimensions trending down. And as you noted, that is in direct opposition. That's direct opposition to organizers and IOC's claims overall. So we see this counter effect happening, that while people are talking more and more about sustainability, they become less and less sustainable at the same time.
So what is the takeaway from your research? Are you saying that we should therefore not be holding Olympic Games?
Well, I don't think that anyone wants to see the games canceled per se. What we'd like to see is games that do less damage overall across all of those dimensions. And there's several things that we could do to make sure that that happens, but unfortunately we're not seeing enough action and not quickly enough.
Pleasure talking to you today, Daniel Wolf from the University of Lausanne. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks a lot.